Hello, my name is Ryoko Vera, and this is my reflection on this Comms 200 class. Throughout this whole semester, I learned about the power of communication first off because I'm a freshman and this is my first ever communications class as a comms major, and I learned about the power of communication. And people have this notion that communication, studying it, is just like how we speak and talk to each other, but really getting a grasp around the idea and then just thinking about like these theories and how it applies to the real world it can become a very powerful tool. I think I appreciated communications in a way where I thought that it was just everyday talking, but it really applies to literally everything in our real world, such as the media, politics, organizations. Knowing what the social sciences are was also a significant part of our class, and essentially it's the study of how people behave, interact, and organize society. So with this perspective from the social sciences and communication, we covered a lot of topics that had to do with interpersonal communication, mass communication, organizational communication, cultural communication, and so that really shows you that it has so much of an applicability to our real world and to our everyday lives, and it's honestly something that everyone would benefit from studying. Using social sciences really helps communication scholars with things such as analyzing real human behavior, understanding our audience, improving messages in the media, or even just like addressing the issues and problems such as misinformation and persuasion. The theory that I will be talking about is uses and gratifications theory. I thought this one was pretty interesting to learn about, but this theory basically says that people actively choose media to satisfy their specific needs and interests rather than being passively influenced by it. I remember the word slobs, like passive slobs, being used in our lecture class while explaining this theory, and it's basically just saying that we aren't just slobs. Like, our brains are still active and we're still gonna choose what we want. I think it has a little bit of a connection to evolutionary perspective. Like, we have our needs, and so we're kind of subconsciously like reaching for that, even though like social media and using technology kind of makes our brains like relax a little bit, but we're still seeking out what we want and what we need, information that we know would be useful in our lives. So yeah, I just said one of the assumptions for that theory, and it's basically that we are active audiences. Like, we have some sort of expectations, and that ties into our second assumption of choices, that we choose the media content based on our needs, interests, and goals. And then the third assumption is basically just like there's competition between different TV programs and our media that we consume. And there are 4 motivations with this theory, and it's entertainment, information, personal identity, and personal relationships. And so an example I remember from class when we were talking about the 4th motivation, which is the personal relationships. Basically we talked about parasocial interaction, and that's basically like when you're consuming media and you're having a personal connection with the people on. And so it's essentially like a one-sided interaction. So an example includes you're watching the Jimmy Fallon show and you feel like he's talking directly to you. Or I know I can personally relate with this, where I'm watching a YouTuber or an influencer and I feel that I have a parasocial interaction with them. I'm consuming their content and they're teaching me information, they're making these funny jokes, and it's kind of like a one-sided relationship. And then applying this theory into my personal experiences and also just like our present world, this kind of bleeds into like the newer version of the uses and gratifications theory. But I'm mainly going to talk about social media such as TikTok, Instagram Reels, even YouTube Shorts. But it's basically the way that our content it creates an algorithm. So if you like one kind of video, you're gonna see, like multiple times, you're gonna see more of those pop up. So for example, you're becoming more interested with fitness, so you're gonna like something about working out, and then that social media platform, they're gonna provide you with more of that sort of content. And so I think this also talks about the motivations with things such as information. You're going to learn more about health, what nutrients your body needs, what kind of exercises are best for you, and then also personal identity. I think because like the health and fitness world, a lot of influencers, they use it to kind of express and embrace themselves. And I mean, it could be stuff for like combating like mental health issues, stuff like that. So consuming that sort of thing, I think, can really build and strengthen your personal identity. But I think the newer version of the theory is also kind of warning us that this content is not reliable. You know, what these influencers are telling you to do is best for your body, like, that's probably not very reliable. But yeah, I mean, this can go with so many different other things in our world today. So I guess concluding on this thought, the uses and gratifications theory really tells us about the power of communication. Like, it really influences our attitudes and our thoughts very strongly. And I think it really helps communicators design messages that help meet the needs of our audiences. And it helps us explain our social identity, interaction, culture. Also says a lot about misinformation, media addiction, and digital communities, niche communities. And so overall, the social sciences and communications demonstrate their power by helping us understand human behavior, shape meaningful interactions, and influence social change. And it really provides that communication is not just the exchange of messages, but this kind of force that structures society and connects us and individuals together. That was my reflection, and thank you so much for this class. I genuinely learned a lot, and I really enjoyed the class discussions and just learning about all the nuances throughout these topics in class. So